I am reading this article from my blog, link in the description. Dealing with those who claim speaking in tongues is not for today. Speaking in tongues is a gift of the Holy Spirit that is relevant today. Some argue that speaking in tongues is not for today, but all evidence shows that it is for today. I do pray in tongues, and I have every reason to prove any skeptic that this gift is relevant today. Why speaking in tongues is for today? 1. Speaking in tongues is for today because we do not know how to pray. The Bible tells us in Romans chapter 8 verse 26 that we do not know how to pray as we ought to, but that the Spirit of God prays through us with groans that are too deep for words. What are those groans that are too deep for words? The truth is that we do not know how to pray, and we need the Holy Spirit to intercede for us. There is no other way for the Spirit of God to intercede for you unless you speak in tongues. Speaking in tongues is basically letting the Holy Spirit pray through you. You can't tell me that it is only people in the biblical times that didn't know how to pray and needed the help from the Holy Spirit of God. We are all the same, and we need help just as they did. Saying that speaking in tongues is not for today forces you to pray in understanding. And since our understanding is limited, your prayers will also be limited. There are no two ways about this. You do not know how to pray, and if you don't speak in tongues, the Holy Spirit can't intercede for you. This does not mean that you can't have a fruitful relationship with God without speaking in tongues, but you will obviously have it easy if you do. 2. Speaking in tongues is relevant today because it is a promise from Jesus. Jesus clearly said that it was good that he lives because the Helper would not come unless he had left. Who was the Helper? The Holy Spirit. And guess what? Speaking in tongues is a gift of the Holy Spirit as documented in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. As long as the Holy Spirit is among us, speaking in tongues remains relevant today. How can the work of the Holy Spirit be relevant today and speaking in tongues isn't, yet it is His gift to us? Every gift of the Holy Spirit is relevant today, including speaking in tongues. These gifts will continue being relevant for as long as the Holy Spirit is working in us. Speaking in tongues is the ability that the Spirit of God gives us to communicate with God and also spread the gospel of Jesus. The disciples of Jesus used it to spread the gospel of Jesus. Since we are still required to reach out to the nations with the gospel of Jesus, there is no way speaking in tongues will be irrelevant today. 3. Speaking in tongues is for today because it edifies us. Go ask anyone who speaks in tongues if speaking in tongues is for today. Of course, they will tell you it is for today, and that is why they are doing it. But what they may not tell you is why they don't doubt if it is for today. I do speak in tongues, and I guarantee you that if speaking in tongues was not for today, I would still do it. Why? Because of the amazing benefits I get from the gift. To those who don't practice speaking in tongues, they only hear that someone who speaks in tongues edifies himself. But to someone who practices the gift and experiences the edification, it is a whole different story. The sweetness of the edification that comes from speaking in tongues makes you believe that it is indeed relevant today. With the current state of affairs in the world, speaking in tongues is gold. I mean gold. Instead of spending hundreds of dollars on therapy, you speak in tongues and experience peace that surpasses human understanding. The benefits of this gift are insane. Just from the benefits of speaking in tongues, you will believe that indeed speaking in tongues is for today. 4. Speaking in tongues is for today because it is a sign for unbelievers. Apostle Paul mentioned in 1 Corinthians chapter 14 that speaking in tongues is a sign not for believers but for unbelievers. Speaking in tongues is a unique gift that draws the attention of unbelievers. This was clear on the day of Pentecost and even today. The topic of speaking in tongues draws attention of unbelievers like a magnet. One of the purposes of speaking in tongues is to fascinate unbelievers. When the attention of unbelievers is captured, they can be told about Jesus. God is a genius marketer, I tell you. Considering that we have unbelievers today and speaking in tongues creates a buzz among them, why would you doubt its relevancy today? 5. Speaking in tongues is relevant today because we are united in Jesus. Languages unite people. It is God who divided the language of men when they united in rebellion against him during the construction of the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11. The world has divided languages, but when Jesus came, he brought restoration. That restoration included the language we speak. Speaking in tongues is one language that unites all believers. It is the restoration of the one language that existed before Genesis chapter 11. Since the restoration work is still ongoing, why will speaking in tongues be irrelevant today? Think of it like building the Tower of Babel, but now we are building the Church of Christ. We need one language. Speaking in tongues is for today. Conclusion. Speaking in tongues has always been relevant and continues to be relevant today. It is the language that God gave to us. We use it to speak to God, to angels, and to other people who are not of our ethnicity. If human languages never became irrelevant through generations, what makes you think speaking in tongues has become irrelevant today? Also, note that those who practice speaking in tongues have no shadow of a doubt if the gift is for today. Doubts come from those who don't practice the gift. Get the gift, test it out, and be the judge. If speaking in tongues was not for today, God would have notified us. He is not unable. Peace.